Welcome to the new episode of Lucy's Arcane Vault. In today's episode I am going to sew a chiffon blouse with a button front opening, double folded cuffs and a dagger collar. Chiffon is a bit of a challenging fabric to work with. It is very slippery. While cutting you have to use a lot of pins or weights so that it won't move when you cut it. And the machine feed dogs tend to feed it more quickly, and that stretches the fabric and it bulks and the thread pulls it. So I have a few tips what I do to prevent this. So a good thing is to use microtex needle in your sewing machine. This is extra sharp. And these are the needles, microtex needles that I use, and I also have cut strips of pattern paper. These are offcuts, of course, so I can recycle them this way. I will be using them underneath my fabric. And here I have pinned my darts. And Dottie, my assistant, of course, helped with this project. Couldn't have done it without her. Now I'm sewing the darts, so I backstitch at the beginning, the bottom edge of the dart. The strip of paper is underneath. In the end, I stitch like 3 stitches over the marked end of the dart, and then I will pull the thread on the other side and tie a knot. Here I'm pulling the paper away. The needle perforates the paper, so it's quite easy to tear it away. This is overcast presser foot. It has this blade in the middle. So the front darts are pretty wide and I have to trim them down. And I'm going to use overcast stitch to finish the raw edge of the darts. So that's the one. And this could have been done on an overlocker as well. But with chiffon I prefer to do it on a machine. So you press the edge of the raw edge of your fabric against the blade on the presser foot. And these seams, which is the center back seam, the shoulder seam and side seam, are going to be stitched
with French seams. So the French seam is stitched so that first we have wrong sides together, and we are stitching a half of our seam allowance, which my seam allowance is 1.5 centimeters, so half of this is roughly around 7 millimeters. So that's what I'm doing now. And adding the strips of paper as I go. Here I'm pressing the seams. And that's where the stitching is going to be. So now we are going to put right sides together, and the first row of stitching is going to be our edge, and we are going to encase the raw edges in between the fabric. It is easier if you press it first. If you can hear any noise in the background, that's just a cat running in the wheel. So now I'm marking the hem and folding it twice. And it's going to get stitched down. Now I'm going to measure and fold the placket for the button band. With chiffon, it's always nice if you have the placket already in the pattern piece and you don't have to sew on a separate placket. This way it's less fiddly. So I'm backstitching at the bottom of the placket, and then I'm going to pivot, needle down, press our foot up and turn.
So I had the existing pattern that was 1950s inspired by Burdastyle from 2012, I believe. This is the center back seam and this is the point. And when it gets sewed, it looks about like that. And you can see that the color points diagonally. So when you draft a dagger color, you want the point to point downwards. So what I did is that I copied this original piece. The main thing that you want this bottom edge. Copy exactly as it is in the original color piece, so you can nicely set it into your neckline. And after I have copied this, then I pinned it onto the mannequin and just by eye took measurements and angles so that the point points downwards and not diagonally. And this is what I came up with, the dagger color. And when I put the original on top of it, you can see the difference. So this is the original color piece and this is my dagger color.
So here are my color pieces and I'm putting right sides together and I'm going to stitch around the outer edge. and trimming the corners and seam allowances on the cuffs and collar. And making some notches in the curve. The thick knitting needle is quite useful for turning the points on the collar. This is Duchess satin, so you have to press it quite well because it doesn't want to stay down. So now I'm going to pin the collar onto the neckline. Yes, and the button band will be loose in front. The collar doesn't reach the button band. That is quite deliberate. Checking that I don't have any folds on the chiffon fabric underneath. So this is a strip of chiffon fabric that is going to be folded in half and pressed, and it will serve as a binding for the raw edge of the collar. So I also fold in the short edge. and I'm pinning it like maybe 7 millimeters from the raw edge of the color. That is going to be trimmed afterwards. And again, the raw edge of the other side is turned inwards and folded. Now I'm going to trim the excess fabric from the collar. Basically just aligning it with the strip that I have just sewn on. And making some notches into the curves, and then the strip is going to get folded over and hide the raw edges. Here I'm stitching it down. So these are the sleeves, and I have sewn them with French seams, and I have marked the slit. And here I have a chiffon strip. I think this one is cut bias, and I am basically making it into a bias binding. And this is what I will use to encase the raw edge of the slit that I have just cut. It is a little bit fiddly with this fabric. I have to use a lot of pins. And here we have the slit encased, and then on the top of the point I will diagonally stitch a short line so that it will keep on the inside of the sleeve.
So the double folded cuffs, I basically just lengthened, doubled the width of the cuff, and then sewed it regularly as you would any other standard cuff. And then it gets folded backwards, and it sort of points out. The button is underneath, in between the folds.
So the cuffs I have already sewn, and now I'm going to gather the bottom edge of the sleeve to fit into the cuff. These are quite puffy sleeves. So I am pinning the sleeve onto the cuff only onto one edge. I have opened the cuff, the other edge is loose. Now that it is stitched, I am going to press it inside the cuff. And then fold the loose edge of the cuff to encase the raw edge in between and pin it in place, and then later stitch. It is going to be stitched in the ditch, so I will be stitching from the right side just after the white portion of the cuff, and the cuff underneath is folded so that I will catch it with my stitching. So now it's time to fit in the sleeves into the armholes, and I have markings on fronts and on one front edge of the sleeve. So those markings I'm going to align. You cannot see them, they are chalk markings. The top of the sleeve is going to be gathered to create puff. Greetings from Dottie. Here I'm stitching the buttonholes. And here is the finished blouse. I'm very happy how this turned out. It fits really well. I have actually already made another one just like it in silk chiffon. Here I'm wearing it with 50s pencil skirt. This is Charm Patterns Stanwick pencil skirt. And the hat is 1890s Gibson girl hat. It's just worn on the side.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future episodes. And I will be back soon with more stitching and crafting from the yesteryear. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and blessed be. So when I put my original color piece, hello Dottie. So when I put my original color piece onto my dagger collar, you can just about see the difference. This is the original and this is the dagger. So when attached, the dagger points downwards and this one to the side.